Nachiketa Tal is a lake located about 28 kilometers from Uttarakhand. We travelled by a jeep through a smoothly tarred road connecting Uttarakhand, Lambogaon, Gaurikund. On the way, at a particular spot, we could see the beautiful Gangotri glaciers that had just started accumulating snow as the winter was nearing. We reached a small hamlet by name Chaurangi Khal, known for the shrine of Sri Chaurangi Nath, one of the Navanathas or the 9 immortal saints. This is the idol of the saint Sri Chaurangi Nath inside that small shrine. A signboard there revealed Chaurangi Khal's altitude at 2309 meters from the sea level. Now we are going to start a 3.5 kilometers trek to reach the lake, by the side of which the sage Nachiketas, the valiant boy and the hero of Kathopanishad, had his hermitage. The path is laden with fallen leaves, and the crackling sound of the dry leaves below our feet gives us a constant company throughout our walk. As we walk, let me also narrate the story of Nachiketas. Once a sage named Gautama or Vajashravas, son of Uddalaka, conducted a yajna, a Vedic sacrifice. Vajashravas had a son named Nachiketas who was 16 years old. At the end of the sacrifice, Vajashravas announced grandly that he was giving away all his possessions, including a large herd of cows, to the priests and the monks who had assembled there. Nachiketas asked his father to whom he would like to gift his son, who was also one of his possessions. The father did not pay much attention to his question. Nachiketas repeatedly asked the same question. His father became angry and replied, "I give you to Yama, the god of death." Nachiketas, with a pure heart and abundance of faith, cheerfully took his father at his word and went straight to Yamaloka, the abode of death. The god of death was not there, and Nachiketas had to wait for 3 days, and when Yama returned and saw the boy, he gave him 3 boons to ask in lieu of waiting and fasting by Nachiketas for 3 days. Though Nachiketas was in the higher realm of death, he was first and foremost a dutiful son, and so the very first boon was utilized in bringing peace and joy into the heart of his father.
Shanda sangalpa sumanaya dhasyad Vitamanyur gautamo mabhimrityo Tvat prasrishtam mabhivadet pratita Etatrayanam pradhamam varam vrine.
O death, of the 3 boons, I ask this as the first, namely my father may become freed from anxiety towards me, and he may recognize me and talk to me when I am freed by you. The Lord of Death instantly granted this boon, and Nachiketas proceeded with the second boon.
Sattvam agnim swargyamadhyeshi mrityo Prabruhitam shraddhadanaya mahyam Svargaloka amritatvam bhajanta Etadvitiyena vrnevarena.
O death, such as you are, you know the secret of the performance of this mysterious universal fire sacrifice that leads one to heaven. Of that, You tell me how the performer of fire sacrifice gets immortality. This is my second boon that I seek from you. Then Yama explained the techniques of all the three kinds of the ancient Vedic fire sacrifices to the boy in detail. Now Nachiketas, having been satisfied with the questions pertaining to Dharma in the first boon and Artha in the second boon, proceeded to the third question pertaining to Moksha, rejecting the third Purushartha, namely Kama.
येयं प्रेते विचिकित्सा मनुष्ये अस्तीति एके नायमस्तीति चैके एतद्विद्यामनुशिष्टस्त्वयाहं वराणामेष वरस्तृतीयः.
What happens to the soul when it reaches its final death, extinction of personality? Some hold that nothing exists, that all is void. Some say something is. I shall regard your blessing me with this knowledge as my third boon. The question is simple, whether a person continues to exist after death or not. The god of death requested Nachiketas to ask some other boon instead of this last one he asked. In lieu of that, he offered all kinds of earthly powers, kingdom and riches and long life. Nachiketas verily refused to entertain the third Purushartha, namely desire or Kama, and withstood the temptation offered to him by god of death in this regard. He insisted for answer to the same question that he originally asked.
यस्मिन्निदं विचिकित्सन्ति मृत्यो यत्साम्पराये महति ब्रूहि नस्तत् योऽयं वरो गूढमनुप्रविष्टो नान्यं तस्मान्नचिकेता वृणीते.
Nachiketas said, O death, tell me of that thing about which people entertain doubt in the context of next world and whose knowledge leads to a greater result. What happens to the soul in the last stage? Apart from this boon, Nachiketas does not pray for anything. A mortal having come face to face with the immortal that you are, O god of death, how could he ask for mortal things and pleasures? As the student has proved his worth, Yama finally started giving instructions about the indestructible Atman. He starts by pointing out the delusion of ignorant men.
अविद्यायामन्तरे वर्तमानाः स्वयं धीराः पण्डितं मन्यमानाः दन्द्रम्यमाणाः पर्यन्ति मूढाः अन्धेनैव नीयमाना यथान्धाः.
Living in the midst of ignorance and considering themselves intelligent and enlightened, the senseless people keep going round and round, following crooked courses just like the blind led by the blind.
न साम्परायः प्रतिभाति बालम् प्रमाद्यन्तं वित्तमोहेन मूढम् अयं लोको नास्ति पर इति मानी पुनः पुनर्वशमापद्यते मे.
The means for the attainment of the other world does not become revealed to the non-discriminating man who blunders, being befooled by the lure of wealth. One that constantly thinks that there is only this world and none hereafter comes under my sway again and again. Yama further explains the difficulty of knowing self or Atman by an inferior man.
न नरेणावरेण प्रोक्त एष सुविज्ञेयो बहुधा चिन्त्यमानः अनन्यप्रोक्ते गतिरत्र नास्ति अणीयान् ह्यतर्क्यमणुप्रमाणात्.
The self is not certainly adequately known when spoken of by an inferior person, for it is thought of variously. When taught by one who has become identified with it, there is no further cogitation with regard to it. For verily the self is beyond argumentation, being subtler even than the atomic quantity.
तं दुर्दर्शं गूढमनुप्रविष्टं गुहाहितं गह्वरेष्ठं पुराणम् अध्यात्मयोगाधिगमेन देवं मत्वा धीरो हर्षशोकौ जहाति.
The intelligent man gives up happiness and sorrow by developing a meditative mind on the self, that is Adhyatma Yoga, and thereby contemplates on the ancient, effulgent one, which is inscrutable, lodged inaccessibly, located in the intellect and seated in the midst of heart. Yama further says that Om is the name and symbol of Brahman.
सर्वे वेदा यत्पदमामनन्ति तपांसि सर्वाणि च यत् वदन्ति यदिच्छन्तो ब्रह्मचर्यं चरन्ति तत्ते पदं सङ्ग्रहेण ब्रवीमि ओम् इत्येतत्.
I tell you briefly of that goal which all the Vedas with one voice propound, which all the austerities speak of, and wishing for which people practice brahmacharya. It is this, namely Om.
अणोरणीयान् महतो महीयान् आत्मास्य जन्तोर्निहितो गुहायां तमः क्रतुः पश्यति वीतशोको धातु प्रसादान् महिमानमात्मनः.
The self that is subtler than the subtle and greater than the great is lodged in the heart of every creature. A desireless man sees that glory of the self through the serenity of the organs, and thereby he becomes free from sorrow.
सूर्यो यथा सर्वलोकस्य चक्षुः न लिप्यते चाक्षुषैर्बाह्यदोषैः एकस्तथा सर्वभूतान्तरात्मा न लिप्यते लोकदुःखेन बाह्यः.
Just as the sun, which is the eye of the whole world, is not tainted by the ocular and external defects, similarly the self that is but one in all beings is not tainted by the sorrows of the world, it being transcendental. And thus Yama, the god of death, went on explaining further and further on the nature of self until Nachiketas got fully enlightened. And this forms one of the important Upanishads, namely Kathopanishad. We have almost covered our leisurely trek through the solitary path to the lake, and here we see a glimpse of the lake Nachiketa Tal. The lake is about 600 square meters in area, deep in the jungle. During certain seasons, rare varieties of migratory birds reach here, and also this is the source of drinking water for all sorts of jungle animals in winter. The distinctly visible fishes, which are in abundance, that move freely in the lake, show how crystal clear is the water in the lake. There is also a small shrine of sage Nachiketas near the Nachiketa Sarovar. Just behind the lake, we can see a large area of crater-like grassy field. It is said that the lake was originally in this spot, but over a period of time, the waters moved to the present spot where the lake is. We can also see a deep pit, a cavity which is believed to be the Yamaloka Dwar, or through which the hermit boy Nachiketas went to the abode of death. There is a Naga Sannyasi by name Sri Krishnadas Sitaram Maharaj living in a hut by the side of Nachiketa Tal, and he was explaining about the lake to us. This is one place that has a direct relationship with one of the most sacred Upanishads, namely Kathopanishad. He was saying that every year on Nagapanchami day, the villagers come here for a holy dip in the lake. He was also saying that though the sunken ground where we were standing is like an empty pool, water never gets stagnated there even after heavy rainfall, and all the water gets sucked inside through the hole that we just saw. By the side of that ground, it was a breathtaking sight of very tall and ancient trees which have fully shed their leaves but still standing there for centuries like ascetics of yore doing ardent and fierce penance. The branches and even the smallest of the twigs from the main stem of the trees were all intact but fully dried out without even a trace of any green or tender shoots, sprouts, leaves, buds or flowers on them. The Nagasadhu told us that these trees indicate that the lake, before it moved to the present spot, was originally there near these trees when these trees were all fully green. Truly, the existence of these long-lived trees is a wonder, and they very much appear to be glorified souls immersed in some kind of deep trance or some kind of Adhyatma Yoga which the god of death spoke about. Or else, they cannot be standing still like this for so many centuries even after the growth of leaves on them stopped. There was no trace of crust of weeds or plants growing over them. They were all absolutely unruffled and fully absorbed in their own pensive state. And the serene lake Nachiketa Tal also seems to be in a contemplative mood, with its calm and tranquil waters reflecting the surrounding trees like a mirror.